Thanks for taking some time to let us get you on video for a minute. Wanted to give our clients a chance to get to know the person behind the paralegal a little bit. We got Teri Arredondo, the paralegal, here today, and just want to get to know you. Let's start at the top.
Right.
Where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
I am from Salt Lake. I grew up in the inner city of Salt Lake City, Utah. And
What was that like?
yeah, I didn't grow up in the best of neighborhoods, but it was fun. Lots of friends and, just hanging out a lot of times, going to school and not a whole lot else to do over there. You see a lot of train tracks in the middle of the city and a lot of, homeless and things in the neighborhood that I grew up in, but it makes you feel grateful for what you do have.
Yeah.
So I definitely have an appreciation of coming up hard and then, finally having life be a little bit easier as I got older as an adult.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a little different than my upbringing. What about like family situation? Do you have siblings?
I do. I have two brothers and a sister. My one brother is 7 years younger than me, and my other brother and sister are twins, and they are 12 years younger than I am.
Okay.
So quite a bit of age gap there.
Yeah. So what was that like growing up with age gaps like that?
I was always babysitting everybody's kids. I'm the oldest child, the oldest grandchild. I raised all my cousins and my siblings. So yeah, quite the babysitter.
Yeah. Have you been able to stay close with your siblings? Are you close with them today?
I am with my one brother. The twins I've kind of lost touch with. They kind of do their own things. We live really far apart. We don't see each other as much. Thank goodness for social media.
Yeah.
Kind of keep track there. But yeah, my brother that's closest to my age, we talk most daily.
Oh, cool.
So we're very close.
So you grew up in Salt Lake, and then how old were you when you came to St. George?
I have been in St. George for 10 years this year in June. So yeah, I was 40 when I moved here, and I love it. I love the weather. I love the cactus and the palm trees and not having snow. That's probably the biggest plus for me. Yeah, I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now.
So catch me up on then the years between growing up and then moving here at 40. Where else did you live? Have you been in Salt Lake that whole time till 40 or?
Yes. Different parts of Salt Lake, little outer cities, Taylorsville. I lived on the east side for a while, but yeah, pretty much all Salt Lake City before I moved here. I've never lived anywhere else but Utah.
Okay. What about family then? Do you have kids?
Yes, I do. I have 6 kids total. That's with myself and my husband. 4 of my own. I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and then my husband has a daughter and a son. So 6 between this.
Very cool. So you guys keep busy.
Yes, very busy.
So what's it like raising 6 kids?
It can be hectic. It can be very hectic. My kids are all much older than my husband's kids, except for one. But my oldest 2 are 11 months apart in age, so it was like having twins. So they were kind of difficult for a while, but there's a big age gap between all of our children, so not too bad.
So what type of stuff do you guys like to do for fun as a family?
We love to eat. I love to cook. So we have a lot of get-togethers where we make a lot of food and have family over. We're totally into sports. We love football and basketball, so we like to get together for all of those games, birthdays, things like that.
Okay. So what kind of jobs did you do before being a paralegal?
I've worked in the banking industry quite a bit, actually. I have 20 years of collections experience with a couple of large banks, Zions Bank, Wells Fargo, like that. However, when I moved to St. George, there were no collection facilities here, so I had to change my whole career path and started working in billing at the hospital. And I liked it. It just wasn't challenging and wasn't really fulfilling. And then they shut the billing office down, and I found my way to McMullin, and I think I've found home.
Awesome. Okay. So if there's no collections work in St. George, why move to St. George then? What brought you here?
So I actually came here to be with my now husband, then boyfriend. We did a long distance relationship for about a year, a little over a year. And he asked me to move here, and it just made sense. My children were older. I only had one child under the age of 18. And at that time, he had both of his children under the age of 18. And so I just decided to make a change and a fresh start in a new city. And I came here, and we've now been married 5 years and together just over 10.
Awesome. Okay, very cool. Well, tell me about, so you've been a paralegal then at McMullin Injury Law for how long now?
5.5 years.
5.5 years. That's forever.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was that like coming into that position in the beginning? I know you had some billing background. So there were some parts that you had some familiarity. Walk me through what that first year was like.
The first year was challenging yet exciting all at the same time. The billing background actually came in hand really easy with the paralegal because you deal with a lot of bills and records and billing departments and, diagnosis codes, CPT codes, things like this that the insurance companies look for. And I already had knowledge in that. So I think it helped me to learn that aspect. But being a paralegal, like I said, is challenging. You're always learning. I feel like if you stop learning, then you're not doing something right. And like I said, I love a challenge. And it's just, when I was younger, I wanted to be an attorney, and then I just started having kids and it didn't work out. So I finally made my way to the law firm, and I like where I'm at. I wouldn't change a thing.
So what makes you like it? What keeps you working at McMullin Injury Law after 5.5 years?
It's pretty rewarding when you can help someone who's been hurt or injured, and they start out their case frustrated, sad, hurt, mad, all these things, and they're overwhelmed and don't know what to do, and you're able to help them overcome every single one of those obstacles and get to the end where they're healed for the most part in most cases, and you get to put a little bit of money in their pocket to make them feel like, they were heard and that what they went through meant something to someone.
Yeah, that's cool. So tell me, is there an example of that? Can you think of a client that you've been able to help, that you were able to connect with, that comes to mind?
Yes, actually. I had a client where she actually signed with the firm for her husband, who was hit on an electric bike by a vehicle, a drunk driver, actually. And he ended up losing his life as a result of his injuries from this crash. And the wife and I just developed this bond. She would text me throughout the day and just vent to me. And I just kind of walked her through the healing process and how to deal with things, and as far as bills and funeral expenses, and how to get past her anger for the person that hit her husband. And we just developed a friendship over time, over about a year and a half that it took for us to settle her case. She would text me on weekends, and even though I wasn't at work, I would respond because she just kind of needed that friend to be there and hear her. And we still talk from time to time, even though her case settled a while ago.
Were you able to get her a settlement?
Yes, we were able to get her a settlement. Although, it didn't bring her husband back, it did help her to find some peace in the fact that the individual that caused the crash, has to pay consequences. And it did help her to take care of things that normally she wouldn't have because she lost her husband's income.
So I'm assuming that was an insurance policy limit settlement.
Yes, it was.
So how do you explain that to a client, the fact that there is a ceiling on how much money can be available? This person is at fault for, causing a crash that eventually took the life of your husband, and a life is worth an immeasurable amount of money. There's not an amount of money that would make it fair and say, yeah, I would take that deal.
Yeah.
And so all we can get is this limit from the insurance. How do you approach that situation? What do you tell those people?
I guess you kind of have to take each situation for the way it is with that particular client, because everybody's going to handle that particular information differently. With this situation, oddly enough, the wife didn't want a settlement. She just wanted to make sure that her husband's bills were taken care of, and that she didn't have to deal with insurance companies. She didn't have to deal with any of those bills or collections or anything like that. And she repeated over the entire time we had the case that she wanted us to be taken care of. And I wanted to make sure that she understood that our goal was to take care of her. We appreciated that she wanted us to be taken care of as a firm, but our goal was to make her as close to whole as possible. And obviously you can't make someone whole when they've lost their spouse. But I just helped her understand that this money that we were able to get for her, would give her a little bit of a cushion so that there's other things that she no longer needed to worry about that were a concern because her husband was her sole provider.
Tell me about do you have an example of a more typical, luckily most car accidents don't result in somebody being killed.
Right.
Can you tell us about a more typical example of a client that you've worked with where maybe it was a more moderate settlement and they maybe weren't hurt so badly? Does anybody come to mind?
Yeah, actually, I've had a client where it sounds like it would be a bad crash. There were 4 cars. It was kind of a chain reaction. My client was the first car in line, stopped at a stoplight, and 3 cars back rear-ended a car, which chain reaction, everybody rear-ended each other. So her injuries were very minor. And in this case, the policy limits for the at-fault insurance company were low. Her bills were low. And so it was just kind of your typical, she had, just some soft tissue injuries, nothing broken, nothing permanent, but she still had injuries nonetheless. And it still affected her because she wasn't able to get out of the way. Otherwise, she would have went into the intersection. So there was a fear of that as well, which I think happens with a lot of people. They start to have anxiety of, those areas that they got into the crash, whether it be a stop sign or a stoplight. But you just kind of explain to them that this is what's available. This is what we're going to try to do to help you, and just help them walk through it so that hopefully in the end, they feel good about the whole situation.
So she was able to get some medical care covered. Mm-hmm. And then what's a ballpark that a more typical case like that would settle for that you were able to get for that client?
Usually when it's a low policy limits, it's like $25,000. In this case, it was $25,000. If I recall, her bills were about $8,000. So there wasn't a lot of recovery at the end. But we were eventually able to go after her auto insurance as well to get an additional recovery for her, which made her feel like, okay, I was heard. There wasn't a whole lot at the beginning, but now we're fine.
So an additional recovery on her insurance, what does that mean?
So you can, if you get policy limits settlement from the at-fault driver, if you have your own insurance as well, you pay for benefits where you can also get a settlement from your own auto insurance as well. So it's very important for people to have good coverage of their own, which a lot of people lack that. They don't understand that you're not only covering other people, but you're covering yourself.
Yeah, underinsured motorist coverage. Yeah, a lot of people have never heard of that and can make obviously a huge difference. Mm-hmm. What about what attorneys do you work with primarily at the firm?
I actually work with quite a few attorneys. I do have 2 main attorneys. One is Sean McGinnis, and also yourself, Andrew Spainhauer. But I do have several cases with Nate Langston, Jance, and I also, with the owner of the firm, Anthony McMullin, I also have quite a few cases with him.
And who's the best attorney to have cases with?
They're all amazing, and you all bring something different to the table.
So give me an example of that. What's something different than maybe I would do that's different than Nate?
Nate is very technical. So he is very by the book and doesn't always look at the, how do you put it? He's personable to a point, but is more technical because he's our litigation attorney. So he's the one going to court and he's the one fighting when the other attorneys could not get a settlement, versus you are very energetic and always want to look at the personal side of the client, get to know the client, make sure you put that personal feeling and touches on those cases so they kind of feel like a warm hug when you're reaching out to them and talking to them, versus the technical side where you're just talking business.
So Nate's kind of the lawyer's lawyer that can protect me and let me say whatever I want, huh?
Pretty much.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Well, what else? Is there anything else that you would want people to know about being a paralegal and what that is like on the day-to-day?
I would say we're the forefront for the case. The paralegals talk to the clients, some of them daily, some of them weekly, some of them monthly, but we're the ones that they go to when they have an issue or a concern because we're typically the ones that they're talking to on a regular basis. We're also the attorney's assistant. We're the one that does all the digging and finds all of the bills and the records and, looks in deeper into the client's medical history if need be, or if they need guidance with treatment. We're the ones that help set that up for them. We're the ones that make sure that they're getting as much money in their pocket as possible at the end of the day. Although the attorney is the one that gets the money in the house, we're the one that's make sure it's distributed through bills and records and the client themselves and make sure the client gets the most money in their pocket.
Yeah. What's the worst part about being a personal injury paralegal?
I wouldn't really say that there's a worst part, but I guess sometimes you'll have clients that want you to treat them as if you are only for them. They're the only client. You don't have any other clients that you're dealing with, and they can be needy at times. But it's understandable. They've been through something that probably traumatized them. So sometimes it's difficult to balance everything, but I feel like if you just get to know that person and what's the reason that they're feeling so needy at that time and help resolve that, it typically resolves itself throughout the case.
So you tend to be kind of known at our firm as like someone that's very strong at that customer service aspect of building relationships with people and working with them and helping them feel heard and understood. How do you do that? How do you keep each client happy when you might have 15 different clients who all are feeling like they should be the only client that you're working on at that moment?
I just try really hard not to compare my clients to any other clients. Each one of them is individual and every one of them is just as important to me as the next. I could have a client who has $1 million case versus one who has a $25,000 case, and I treat them exactly the same. They're all important to me. Their needs need to be met as quickly as possible, and it's my job to do so. So if they need to, have extra time with me and text me in the evening and it's something important, I let them know. I will see your text message, and if it's important, I will respond to you, regardless if it's during work hours or not.
Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Kansas City Chiefs.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's all I have. Thanks so much for taking some time to get a video together so our clients can get to know you better. Thanks, Teri.
You're welcome.